income looks like for that next cycle compared to where we have been. But there are obviously folks that work with us on a very regular basis in terms of formulating our referendums, getting our projections right, getting our project list right, and that would be the folks from Raymond James. They do the majority of the UCBOE work in the state of Georgia, and have been with Union County through the duration of all the UCBOE that have been done here, and also served the interest of the county commission. So we're very familiar with them, number one. Number two, very comfortable with the fact that we have Gabe Agan and Todd Barnes with us here tonight. Todd has historically, Union County has been his territory. Gabe is a young man that I worked with on some UCBOE projects down in the southern part of the state. So we have a good, sound relationship, but I think more importantly, they always bring some very accurate information and some very clear-cut recommendations for the path that they would suggest that the board look at and study and pursue as they begin to renew their renewal efforts. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Gabe.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Rayfield, and thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I appreciate you having us here this evening. Like you said, you talk about covering territory of the state, you know, going from Decatur County down to South Georgia, the most southern Georgia county, to up in North Georgia, you know, here in Union, total, I guess the 180-degree turn in terms of direction here. It's a lot closer for me to get home from here, so I'll say that. Some late in the night after a school board meeting in Decatur County, you know, put me back home 1 a.m. or later some night, so that's certainly good. But we've had a great relationship and working with Dr. Rayfield, and really glad to get to continue that here. And I think you guys have a great superintendent. But we've been talking for a number of months about SPLOST renewals. As you mentioned, your current special purpose local option sales tax is set to expire at the end of June. And there's a couple of elections that we were talking about were alternatives. You know, the November one when we first started talking, but it seemed the board wanted to focus on the May date. So the one that we're going to focus on now is the May 22nd, 2018 date. So really the purpose of this is just to give you some information, historical, give you where we're seeing the history of sales tax revenue and some projections forward to kind of let you know what you have to work with for planning the next UCBOE. And of course we did, you know, want to just give you the historical overview before we jump in for what we at least think you might have to work with going forward. So I'm just going to jump straight into this, and certainly by any means, if there's questions, jump in and talk to me. Or, you know, Todd has more of a history working with Union County Board of Education. I know he's been here for all these bond issues, so he's has a very good understanding of projects you've had in the past and history here. So just want to start with this, just give you a good overview of where you've been in the past with the UCBOE program. So your first SPLOST was voted in March of 1998. They're 5 years at a time. So assuming that you don't hit your cap, you know, you do have to have a not to exceed amount. So if you set it too low, like let's say you set it at 10 million and you collect 20, it's going to likely to stop before the full period of 5 years. So we usually recommend that you set it high enough to where you're likely not going to hit that and have to deal with the efforts of renewing it early again. So SPLOST 1 was levied from July of 98 to June 2003. And then SPLOST number 2, 5 years later, SPLOST 3. And then the current SPLOST that we're in is SPLOST 4, which started levy July 1 of 2013 and will continue through June of 2018. There's a little bit of a timing gap for when that money's collected at the businesses at the cash register versus when you get it. It was actually 2 months in arrears until I think 2009 when the state for whatever reason, they were able to get that to where it's just 1 month in arrears. So it's money quicker is a good thing. So now it's 1 month in arrears. So that's the difference in the cash flow dates there. As you see, the dollar cap has progressively gone up. Union County, with a lot of the other North Georgia counties, have really seen a lot of growth, probulation, and of course sales tax. So the dollar caps progressively got more. Probably the more interesting one, the vote date, the 2007, when that was, if you remember, kind of the peak of the real estate, bubble, 2006, 2007. We did set the cap fairly high at 27 million, but the economy really tanked after that. So it's not just a Union County thing; it's across the state, across the country, that was really affected like that. So by that. So, and also summarize the total amount collected over the 5 years period. So it was just about 10.4 million for the first SPLOST program. It progressed up to 16.4, and similar to that for SPLOST 3. On the next slide, we'll give you some ideas where we think SPLOST 4 will end, and then we'll move on to what we're looking at for SPLOST number 5, which is the one that if the board decides to adopt the referendum resolution in the future, to put that on the ballot for voters to decide if they want to continue that tax, what you could expect to raise. We did have bond programs, as you see here, on the first 3 SPLOST. On SPLOST 4, you put bonds on the ballot but did not issue those bonds. The first 3, you could always issue all the bonds, fewer bonds than approved, or none at all. As you see, SPLOST 1, 7.92 was authorized and then issued. Sorry, SPLOST 1, SPLOST 2, 10 million was authorized and issued, and then SPLOST 3, up to 20 million, but you decided to only issue 15 of those. And for the current SPLOST, 13.5 was authorized, but none were issued in this program. So let's move to the next one. I always like to start by just giving a historical overview of collections countywide. So this goes back quite some time to 2002. You see the local option sales tax, which is always in place. It's not subject to renewal, but theoretically it should be the same. It's always very, very close to what you get in education SPLOST. But you're about 2.5 million a year. That's grown over time. 2007, 2006, that was kind of the high mark at about 3.7 million. We've come down some. Well, actually, we're back up to that now, but before we started kind of dipping again, and now we're really starting to rebound and have had some good solid growth, about 3.3% over the last 5 years here. One thing I think to note too, 3.3% is just the average of the last 5 years in terms of collections growth, but there were some things that I would say skew that a little bit to being more conservative. For example, 2013, the state implemented the ad valorem title fee on cars. So after that, they phased out charging sales tax. Well, they didn't charge sales tax on cars, but then they instead had ad valorem title fees. So that money came out of the pot. So for sales tax, and went into another revenue source there. So that was a source of sales tax that went away. So if that had stayed in place, you probably would have had, well, you would have had higher growth than the 3.3% average. So we just look at that historically. And this lower chart here, you see historical education SPLOST 4. This is the current one in place. 50 months into this full 60 months, you collected $16,080,122, which is about $321,602 per month. What you see on my notes up here, I just assume we don't grow any for the remaining 10 months. So I just kind of conservatively say we'll keep tracking at that. You could expect to raise about almost $19.3 million here. The number I have underlined up there, $19,296,142, and that's just assuming the same pace. If we have some more growth, you may have a little bit more money to work with on that one. The cap was set at $21 million, which I think this data proves that was a good, prudent cap to set. It wasn't way too high, but it should be enough to certainly let this run the full 5 years here. As I mentioned on the previous page, you had authorization to do up to $13.5 million bonds, but decided not to issue those for this program. This lowest box here, where you see where I have highlighted in yellow 12 months period, and typically when we project forward, we have a base year. So we basically ran the numbers, seeing what you collected from October 2016 through September 2017, just to establish a base year and then to project that forward. And on the next page, we show the various options. If we just stay same level as the most recent 12 months and collect that over the 5-year period, assuming renewal supply starts July 2018, continues through June 2023, at zero growth, $20,725,333 would be the collections on that amount. And then on the lower chart, we always like to show some just sensitivity. You know, for one, if there was a bond program included, and that's something you decide. But we typically always like to bond very conservatively, and even possibly in some decline in growth rates, so you're not going to have to levy property tax to pay for sales tax bonds. So we look at various scenarios. If you drop 5% growth per year, compounded each year, that would leave you almost $17.15 million. So that would be, I would say, a very, very conservative scenario that you would be able to collect that amount. And then as much, I think, for setting the not to exceed amount, I would suggest that you budget for a little bit of growth, because like I said, you like to have that a little bit higher than you think you might anticipate collecting. I know you guys know the economy here locally better than I do, but just historically at 3.3%, that would probably put you somewhere in the neighborhood of just over 23 million. As you notice here, at 2.5% growth, you would collect 22.75 million. At 5%, you would collect just a shade under 25 million. So, I personally think having a not to exceed amount somewhere in the neighborhood of 24 or 25 million would be a good prudent number. Okay. Now this is the bond part, and I'm just showing you this to give you an idea of where interest rates are. If you do decide to do a bond program, I'll tell you, by putting this on the ballot does not mean that you're going to issue bonds. When you approve a referendum resolution, the main thing you're authorizing is the renewal sales tax. But if you want any flexibility to issue bonds, like I said, you don't have to issue those. They do have to be put on the ballot and approved by voters at the same time. You have to have the maximum amount, the maximum interest rate, and just the parameters established on that, and certainly no requirement to issue them if you put them on the ballot. Not going to get into a lot of the specifics here, because this will be a decision if you decide. We'll go into a lot more detail later if you decide you want to look at the interest rates right now are just a little bit over 1.5%. And in many cases, construction inflation might exceed the rate you pay on these bonds right now, because interest rates are pretty low, and they may be a little bit higher a year from now once we get the referendum passed, if you decide to move forward on that. So if you have questions, please ask me, but this isn't the main focus of our presentations. Just to go over a few key things, and I know we've shared a little bit more detail, the election schedule. I want to kind of hit some of the highlights here, but the date that we're working towards, May 22nd, is the election date this year. It is the primary election for the governor's race, so it's going to be pretty good turnout. So typically on that election date, and to basically get to that point, your timing's good right now. You're doing the right things, finalizing the projects that you want to put on the ballot. I think some things to start thinking of this, or just decide on the maximum collection amount. Like we mentioned, if you're looking at the historical numbers, if you think 23, 24, $25 million, we need to get that established. The project list, which we'll develop and then get those to the attorneys that Harmon Hartley and Fine Counsel did work on, get those incorporated into the referendum resolution format. And if we decide to put bonds on the referendum as well, the parameters are the not to exceed principal and coupon interest rates there. So you know, right now, like I said, just working on these preliminary, the amounts, projects, and then we'll get the legal team involved to help develop a referendum resolution draft that will be presented, you know, with enough time for you guys to review and be comfortable with your staff to review and get comfortable with and comment. And the date, one requirement is a 90-day election, 90 days before the election date call when you have a referendum election with a statewide primary like this one is. So basically all this has to happen before February 20th, 2018. So you have some time, but you know, it sneaks up on you. You know, so I think having that adopted with some cushion before then would be prudent. So that was the main thing. I wanted to just kind of start with the collections historical and just facilitate discussions, and if you have questions of me or Todd, we're just here to help this process.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The bond issue, would that be, not directly in our case, something that you would just as a, if you've got a project started and the collections are slower coming in and you have obligations to meet, would that be one of the main reasons for doing the bond issue, so you could get revenue quicker?
I think it's wise to have it in the language, and then you've got the option to exercise it or not. But if in fact you encountered some circumstances and you didn't have it in the language, that's not an option for you at all. It takes that option off the table. So I think at the very least, it's wise to do what you did last time, which was include the language, but not intend to sell it.
I think last time, the way it was explained to us is, we have one opportunity to put this on there. We did not plan on requesting bonds.
Sure,
We did not do it. However, if we had run into a catastrophe situation that we had to do something very quickly and the funds were not available, we could have, and at a very low interest rate.
Yeah, I was going a little bit on that. You know, you're totally right. You know, and kind of both have worked with some other school districts to where, you know, they maybe know we're certainly not going to be about, let's don't put them on here, and then for whatever reason, the situation changed where they really need to a year later. And I'm not going to tell you it's impossible to get financing done, but it will cost you more money because there's some other type financings. You know, I won't get into all the details, but GO bonds are the cheapest way to finance projects. You know, get into some like lease purchase and other type financings. You know, it could cost the school district a little bit more money. So you know, you're totally right. You know, if you don't think that you're going to issue them, you know, there's certainly not a downside to putting them on. And you think things could change, you know, from a year to now. Then, you know, another talk about reasons to issue these bonds. You know, certain cases where you basically have to. You know, if there's a new high school or a new school, you know, it's pretty much impossible. You can't build that in pieces. You know, a lot of these projects, you could with a few months saved, you could probably knock a few of them out. But you know, the other thing to consider is, you know, yeah, there is some interest cost. You know, probably be $500,000-600,000 over the life of this. If you do this full amount, even less if fewer bonds are issued. But you're also going to have that construction inflation. You know, I think most contractors that you might talk to, facilities department would probably agree that, you know, over time it's going to cost more and more and more to get construction projects done, especially when the economy's better. So I wouldn't consider that money wasted. Yes, it is of expense and the interest costs, but it can be offset by being able to do something now, it typically lower cost.
I think in the previous bonds previous lots that we had, we were building literally facilities. We had to get students in, we couldn't wait, like you said, in
Sure,
piecemeal.
yeah.
So, but having the option was attractive last time,
Sure.
just in case of unforeseen circumstances.
Absolutely.
But was able to build buildings and everything without having to do it.
Right, yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, it's a great situation to be, a debt-free school district.
Well,
so.
we made a commitment to the taxpayers, we would not bond.
Uh-huh.
That would be a last resort, and I think that's what we're planning this time, is we don't want to, but
Sure,
we want,
sure.
I mean, I would like the option, but we'd have to decide.
Sure.
Are there any costs associated with adding the bond issue to the referendum, like on council or any of that?
I would say, Mary, the way I get paid, our firm gets paid is if there's a bond issue actually underwritten. So, we would charge a fee for underwriting those bonds. So to answer, we do not charge a fee unless a bond issue is done. So no, there's not going to be an additional bill from us to do that. And in terms of the legal expenses, you're still going to have to do a referendum resolution. It's, nothing significant or anything. I would say, probably none whatsoever. So it's got to, like I said, if there is something to be done, obviously we like it when bonds are sold, but we're not going to try to push you into doing something that you don't think forwards where the school district needs to go in terms of direction. But you're totally right on the concept of if you don't put them on the ballot now, things change. It's going to tie your hands for the future. So that's really all I have. But it's good to be here, and it's good to work with. You got a great superintendent here. And, any questions come up, feel free to call me or Todd. And
We appreciate you coming, the information is wonderful.
Okay.
As I told you, when we got started, they are very good at what they do, but at the same time, they're very responsive to the climate and the culture of the school district. And if that's pay as you go and not selling bonds, then so be it. We're still here to provide you with the support and information that you need to get that done. And I think that's a credit to Gabe and Todd to spend the time to come with us, knowing what the climate and culture is for that part of it. They're still willing to help us through getting the referendum written and everything to the ballot. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, the next item on our agenda is executive session. I'd like for us to, entertain a motion. We move into executive session.
Second.
All in favor? And Ms. Towery, thank you again for these sweet rolls. And I will take them with me. Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome y'all to the Union County Board of Education, October 24th, 2017, 7 o'clock monthly meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And the first item is going to be, let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone has on their computer the agenda. I'd like to entertain a motion. We approve the current agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Okay. We each received the minutes from the last meeting by email. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns about it? I'd like to entertain a motion. We accept the approval of last month's meeting minutes that was submitted.
So make a motion to approve last month's minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Presentations. Dr. Redfield, Union County.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we had a request this month from Mr. Timothy Jennings with Union County Extension 4-H, that 4-H would like to come and share some things with the board and the group tonight. And you notice you've got a really nice looking set of young people back here. So I'll introduce you guys to get started.
Well, thank you, Dr. Redfield. Thank you, board members. It's my pleasure to have with me tonight our senior board and also staff members from our office of the County Extension Office. And while the kids are coming up around the back, I want to introduce quickly our staff. We have Melissa Mtg, who works at the County Extension Office. She's our agricultural agent, and she works here part-time with Towns County, so we share her with Towns County. And we have Jamie is our secretary, and then Katie Rittenhouse at the very back. She's our AmeriCorps member that works with our school students, and she's also a student at Young Harris, getting a degree in education. And so who knows, in the near future she could be one of our teachers here at our school. But this is our senior board members. These are 4-Hers that are in high school. And so let me introduce our president is Elena Griggs. Then we have our vice president, Emily Rittenhouse. We have our secretary, Allie Cooper. I'm glad I've got this written down. And then Skylar, who's our reporter, and then Jesse Holbrook is our historian. And we have two reps tonight here. We have our senior rep is Gabriella Jennings, and then Milo is our 11th grade rep for the senior board. We have a handful of other students that are on the board, but because of other commitments, they weren't able to be here tonight. I did promise Mr. Stafford that I would get these kids back to band here in a minute. So if everybody wants to go ahead and go back, and I'll let Elena talk a little bit about the 4-H program. We just have 4 quick slides here. If you want to stand right here and just talk a little bit about what we do in 4-H. This group right here in this picture is just our senior group that we had an award ceremony back in May. And so, but she's got, I think, 3 slides that she just wants to talk and give you a highlight of what we do in Extension and in 4-H. We're a partner in education. We're funded through the University of Georgia, obviously, through the Board of Education, and we're also funded through the Commissioner's Office. And we appreciate your continued support. And she's going to tell you a little bit about what happens in 4-H in the classroom, and then what happens in 4-H, a few after-school programs, and I'll let her finish off. Okay? That's Lena Griggs, our president.
I want to make sure I'm clicking the right way before I get too ahead of myself. Okay. So 4-H has provided a lot of opportunities for students to get involved, and I think our numbers really do show that. So in our Cloverleaf area, 4th through 6th grades, we have 710 students. So that's quite a lot of people that we're trying to get up and get used to public speaking and get them involved young, so when they come up to high school, they have that experience. Our junior 4-Hers are middle schoolers. We have 30 students in there, and then senior 4-Hers, 9th through 12th grade, consist of 21 students. So 4-H also offers many after-school activities, including our BB program, which has 8 shooters on the team, who recently just went to nationals. So if you see any of them, make sure you congratulate them. We also have the archery team, which has 18 shooters, the modified trap team, which I'm a part of, with 40 shooters, and then a skeet team with 8 shooters. And each of these activities is involved in Project SAFE, which is the target sports, having fun but making sure you're staying safe, and target sports provided through 4-H. Okay, and then recently in July, If you do well enough, if you win first place or second place on the sweepstakes at District Project Achievement, our public speaking project, you qualify to go to the state competition. And so 3 of us qualified for that. Miss Allie Kumler, who's the shorter one in this picture, actually mastered. She won first place in pork production, and she earned the title of Master 4-H'er. I placed second in the Target Sports project, and then Miss Emily Rittenhouse here on the right placed third in the Flower, Shrubs, and Lawns project, all at the state level. So we're very proud of that. We're looking to go back this year and hopefully bring some more than just 3 of us. But that was over the summer, and then I think that just about wraps that up. So thank you for your provided generosity, so much support. You keep our program going, and we really, really appreciate it. There were refreshments in the break room afterwards, and I have to get to band practice, but thank you guys so much.
Okay, next item on the agenda is Partner in Education Award.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In our business, in the school business and running a school system, you always realize very, very quickly that there are certain entities, organizations, and individuals that you depend on greatly to make things work safely and efficiently and make your life easier on a daily basis. Those are in every community that you want to go work in. And some of those relationships are really good. Some of them are average. And to be honest with you, some of those relationships can be absolutely non-existent and terrible. Thankfully, that atmosphere does not exist in Union County. We have a tremendous group of leaders in our county that represent different governmental entities and organizations that when we pick up the phone or we go to visit them or we sit down to talk about the needs of the school district and how we can help the other side, they are very open to that. So we decided this school year what we wanted to focus on each month was to recognize a partner in education. Someone that is a very valuable partner to what we do every day on a daily basis, somebody that we have come to depend on and we value very highly in terms of what we call partnership and engagement in public education. And I certainly can think of no other entity that we should recognize first other than the Union County Sheriff's Department and Sheriff Mason. So if you come forward. We want to thank Sheriff Mason. They provide a tremendous amount of support to the school system that many of you don't have the opportunity to see every day. We've got Robbie Brown back here with us that is has been one of our SROs and continues to work with us on security detail at night. But Sheriff Mason and his staff, they go above and beyond to try to help us with any situation that we run into, and we want to tell you how much we appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate y'all, and I went to school in this building here, a little bit younger, and the utmost importance to us is the safety of our school children and faculty and what have you. It's no secret there are a lot of problems in this nation. You never know. We hope it never comes here, but we're as prepared as we can be. And y'all well know, John, that all you got to do is pick the phone up and I'll answer it. And we're committed to you and appreciate you, and we appreciate working with y'all on the board. And thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is action items. First item is the financial reports for June, July, and August.
You find June, July, and August with the year end, and at the beginning of this year, you will see again the financial report notes that Ms. Barbara has been kind enough to attach to those documents that explain either overages or underage on certain categories, and most of it is either related to not estimating income high enough or cash flow with state grants and things like that. So the financials for those months and the year end appear to be accurate, and I recommend them for your approval.
We all received these reports via email. Does anyone have any questions, concerns on any of the reports?
I do have a question, Barbara, on the August report. It looks like we're about, at this point in time, we're about 17% through the fiscal year. And everything, most all figures are on target at about that 15 to 17%. But the instruction, the 1,000 category, it's extremely low, I guess, based on the amount budgeted. Why is that?
That's because the teachers get paid in September, so you'll see it start going up in September. July and August are accruals from last year, so a lot of the instructional starts in September.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions? I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the financial documents submitted to us.
Make the motion.
Second.
All in favor? The next item on the agenda is executive session. We will move into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluations or rating of public officer or employees. I'd like to entertain a motion that we move into executive session.
Make the motion to go to executive session. Second.
All in favor? Okay. Let's go back into executive session. Welcome back to the October 20th board meeting. We're back out of the executive session, and the next item is personnel recommendations. On the personnel recommendations, we have a list that is submitted. Would like to make the addition of a Jessica Van Zura, full-time nutrition, if we could add that to the list. And do y'all want to take these all together or individually?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion. We accept the personnel recommendations as submitted with the addition.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? And that's it. Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion. We adjourn the meeting.
I'll make the motion we adjourn. Second.
All in favor? And we're done, folks, for the night.